we'll transition a little bit from LinkedIn. I want to talk a little bit about how executives and individuals of that ilk can better their networking strategies, identify job opportunities through that phase, if you will. What are some what are some effective ways that executives can identify hidden job opportunities within their industry, within their network?
The smartest executives I have seen know their target audience really well, and they know their
Sure.
target companies. And let me go further by saying most people that I know who are executing a job search have in their mind maybe 2 to 5 companies that they would like to work for. And they can easily recall 2 to 5 companies that I'd like to work for. But the savviest job seeker knows 25 to 30 companies that they would like to work with or for. And that sounds like a mind-blowing number, but I bet every single person that's attending this chat could get a list of 25 if they spent the time building that target company list and doing the research and really thinking about all of their options and maybe adjacent companies, companies that are rising, companies that are maybe new to market. So taking the time to build that target company list using websites like Crunchbase to research organizations, like theorg.com to look at organizational charts. And not only are they building a target company list, they've taken it even a step further. And they've said, okay, if I were to work for XYZ company, who would my boss be or my bosses? Who would I potentially report to? And so they've gone on the org.com and they've pulled an org chart, or they've gone on LinkedIn and they've figured out, like, if their title is going to be director, who's going to be the senior director and who's going to be the vice president. And they know exact names. And their goal, and maybe it's a 6-month goal, maybe it's a 2-year goal, is to try to get in person or on the phone or on Zoom conversations with those people so that they are on your radar. There may not be a job on their team today. There may not be a job on their team tomorrow, but you better believe when they're hiring, they're thinking about that person. I was talking to a job seeker, super competitive field. This person is very niche down, high level of expertise. Like, there are not a lot of jobs open for this type of person or type of individual. But again, they follow that exact formula, and they checked in with a company, their dream company, almost yearly, annually for 5 years. And they kind of had this like joking relationship with the person who would potentially be their boss, like, hey, it's my annual time to check in with you. And this year, this 5th year, the person wrote him back and they said, hey, we have somebody who's going to be retiring or transitioning out. Let's fly you in. Let's have this conversation. And so this person found out about a role before it was posted, is in the running for this very competitive, highly sought out position because of this method.
Yeah, I love that. That's strategic networking at its finest right there. That is awesome. Do you have any thoughts when it comes to emerging platforms, methods executives can explore when it comes beyond the traditional means of kind of getting into organizations through their org structures and things of that nature? What would you have in response to that?
You know, it's so funny. I've had like lately when I've been going to networking events and I tell people that I write resumes, it's like everybody wants to pull me aside and they're like, hey, have you heard about, and they want to tell me about the ladders.
Technology.
Yeah. And they're like, they want to like, have you heard about the ladders.com and how they'll apply for jobs for you? And apparently people are now using websites that will apply for up to 1,000 jobs a day on behalf of candidates. And it's like mind-blowing to some job seekers. And I've tested these, I've seen these, I'm in all kind of recruiter forums and I'm hearing people talk about these tools. And right now, let me just tell you guys in the audience, do not use them. They are really, really hurting candidates. They're not answering all of the questions appropriately on the applicant tracking system. So candidates are being vetted out because these tools are not appropriately selecting all the right options or answering questions well for them. And they're essentially spamming companies. And companies are having a problem. You guys might be seeing this. Maybe they have gone from having 120 candidates per role to now in some cases like 5 times that number because of these AI automated job application systems. So I'm not a big fan of those, and I wouldn't suggest that people use them right now. What do you guys think about those?
I agree. I think that I'll just tell you from my standpoint, and Ciara, I want you to come in behind me and share your thoughts as well. I think automation in some ways can hurt not just candidates, but almost hurt our industry as well when it comes to those mass applications and mass flows. I see some of the pratfalls that you talk about when it comes to not entering questions properly through the ATS or through the application, whatever application tool that companies are utilizing. I definitely have heard some of those stories as well. Ciara, do you have any thoughts that you want to throw out there on your end?
Yeah, I think it's a quality over quantity thing, right? It's better to apply really well a few places because there are candidates, just full disclosure, that I've seen and I recognize their names when I'm recruiting, and I'm like, didn't you just apply for a software engineer job with me last week, and now you're a project manager, and next week you're in marketing? You need to target in, and it's not that you can't apply for multiple jobs, but like when you're applying for everything, I'm like, how are you the best fit for all of those? So recruiters, I think, do definitely notice.
Yeah, I think one thing candidates are trying to do is they're trying to just get into as many spaces as they can get to, just so that they can be seen when the time comes, right? That's their strategy. I don't necessarily think it's the best one. What were you about to say, Sarah? I'm so sorry.
I was just going to say, kind of along with what Ciara says, I think job seekers have a really hard time measuring the success of their job search.
Sure.
And when you're job searching, you want to try to quantify the impact of what you're having. And you want to say, okay, I'm being successful. I've accomplished all these things. And a number of job applications that you submitted is one way that a job seeker, might measure their success. And I would venture to say that that is not the metric that I would use to measure job search success. I would rather a job seeker apply for fewer roles. And like you said, Ciara, be really smart and strategic about the way that you apply for those roles versus, 50 jobs in one day. That to me is not the right metric.
I will speak to that. I lead a webinar aside from this, but we call Reengaging the Job Market, that I do with a former boss and current mentor of mine. And one thing that we always talk about is that quality over quantity method. And speaking directly to what you and Ciara both just said, tailoring your search in a way that you're being more impactful with each application that you send out versus just a shotgun blast, right? And I definitely think that yields to better results, just from my own observation, separate from my desk, if you will. Ciara, do you have any other thoughts that you want to ask?
And then going back to discovering opportunities and networking, I know you mentioned both doing so online and in-person events. How do you think those kind of weigh up, especially in post-COVID, where we're seeing more and more stuff like this go online? What are your thoughts about, still going to these in person?
I think it's a great mix. So right now, this group of participants, you can click on people and you can see the participants that are here. And you could potentially take this list of people as you're here and go on LinkedIn and see who you can find on LinkedIn who's a participant in this event and say, hey, I saw you in the audience of Sarah and Ciara and Ben's talk, and just wanted to connect with you offline. That is one very simple way that you could take an online event offline and perhaps continue that conversation with someone. So these types of events are still a great way to meet people and still a great way to connect with others. But I know in this post-COVID world that we're in now, I guess 4 years later, people are very hungry for in-person conversations. I joined a local co-working space, American Underground, for those of you who are tuning in from the Raleigh-Durham area, primarily just to meet people. I don't go a lot. I've got the lowest bar membership, but I'm there just to engage and just to meet people. And I found that when you are able to put your face with your name, people are so much more trusting and willing to help you and go to bat for you. And so if I went to the Slack group for the American Underground co-working space and said, hey, I'm looking for X, I would probably have 10 people jump in and say, hey, I know somebody, I'm happy to help. And so I think you have to do a hybrid of like both in person and online. And just to add to that, I think people think that networking events have to be stuffy or have to be like official for them to be networking events. But I often say my kids' soccer games are the like most impactful networking event that I could go to the entire week. It's all people that are, you know, around my age that have similar interests and great connections. And so I just think networking can happen everywhere that you go. And you need to take the time to get to know people and tell your story, and don't be afraid of asking for introductions.
I love that.
Awesome.
Networking is very relational. It's one-on-one human interaction, right? Or group human interaction that kind of can fall within the same tiers of interest. And it doesn't always have to be in a professional space. I love that you just used your son's soccer analogy there. So that's fantastic.
Let's see. Top question, and this is, I know this is a bit of a controversial one. Ghost jobs that people apply to and they just haven't heard back. Do you recommend following up? Do you what are your thoughts on that?
So I think, first of all, I'll address what ghosting is. I think some people have a misconception around ghosting. When I hear someone say, I've been ghosted, and I ask for more information and they say, well, I applied for a job and then I never heard back, I would not define that as ghosting. That just means that they didn't pursue you as a candidate and they have potentially gone with someone else, or they have not hired for the role and they did not close the loop. That to me is not candidate ghosting. To me, candidate ghosting is when you've invested time and energy in interviewing for the position, likely in person, and you have been told that there will be a next step and then you did not get that next step. That to me is candidate ghosting. And I've certainly heard some really just awful experiences from candidates of, you know, flying out for, you know, week-long interviews and then never hearing back after investing a lot of time and energy into that. But I think most people's definition of ghosting is off. What I would tell you is, yes, you should certainly follow up if you have been asked to interview. You have the right to know what happened. I would follow up with the recruiter. If the recruiter doesn't respond to you, shame on them, but perhaps then at that point, go to the hiring manager and just touch base, be positive, because you never know what could happen. They may have hired someone internally, but may have an open rec in, you know, 3 to 6 months, and you could potentially be a candidate for that position. So just, you never know what could happen. Give some grace to the person, know that they're busy. And you guys know this, recruiters today have so many balls at play. The average corporate recruiter is responsible for 45 open recs, 45 open jobs. And we know that the average company sees approximately 75 to 125 candidates per open rec. So that's a lot of people at play that they're responsible for. And I know recruiters are highly relational and wish that they could personally talk to every single person, but they just don't have the time and hours in their day to do that.
That was a fabulous response. Thank you. Right. So, and I apologize, I am going to mispronounce this. We have a question about platforms for personal branding, such as Malt or Catalant. Have you come across those before?
I haven't, but I need to hear about these. I'm not familiar with them, but I do often get questions from people who ask me, Sarah, should I have a portfolio, or should I have a GitHub page, or should I have an online video interview prepared so that I can send it as an introduction to recruiters? And the answer to that question that I would give is yes. If you're in technology, you should have a GitHub page. If you are in branding and marketing and, you know, graphic design, yes, you should have a portfolio where you can showcase the work that you've done. Anything that you can do to showcase that you're different and that you've got experience is always great, that value proposition. And then should you have a video introductory video that you send to recruiters? I kind of feel like, and I'd love to hear y'all's take on this, Ben, as a recruiter. I feel like recruiters are just busy. They're not going to have the time to watch a 3-minute video for every single candidate that comes by. Maybe if they're interested in you, they would watch it, but I don't think it's necessary. What's your take?
I think I agree with you. And we have so much. You mentioned this earlier. We have so much flying at us anyway that setting aside 3 to 5 minutes for extra stuff to fly in our face might not be the wisest strategy to play. Matter of fact, I think you and I may have even talked about that on the webinar that I did for you a little while back. I think that was one of the questions I had gotten was around something very similar to that. But yeah, I agree. The short versions, I agree. So.
Yeah, and I think even things like that they do catch your attention and they are great. At the end of the day, if the skill set's not there, it's still not going to be a match. Have you
Right.
guys seen from people in like the graphic design UI space, the resumes that are like little mini video games where you like walk around as a person, you go over to the bookshelf and here's all the things, that they've created, or you walk around that way and like those are so cool. Like I'll play around with your resume, but it doesn't make you qualified for the rec.
I would thank them for the game in that
Yeah.
scenario.
I
I'll
usually
do something
respond,
around
but
it. Yeah, sorry.
oh no, those are so neat.
For
Okay.
what that's worth.
Ooh, okay. This I think is going to tag onto that nicely. And I think this is a bit of a generational one as well. Cover letter. Do you like cover letters? Do you read cover letters? Sarah, what are your thoughts?
So this is a great question. There's research that show that 50% of people like cover letters and 50% of people don't read them. I fall in the camp that absolutely loves a cover letter. And the reason that I love a cover letter is because I own a small business. When I submit that I have a job and open up a rec for a position on my team, I'm not getting the 150 applicants that Google is getting. And a lot of people don't know my business like someone knows Google or Amazon. I don't have the same business reputation or career reputation as these larger firms. So the reason I like a cover letter is because it's a chance for a candidate to show me their passion and why they care about the work that I do. Because I want to hire somebody who's smart, who's got the skill set that I'm looking for, but also who really, really cares about the impact of the work that we do. And so I personally read them. I think it depends on what the organization is asking for. If they're asking that you submit a cover letter, you should certainly submit a cover letter. And if you know they're not getting 500 candidates like an Amazon or Google, I would certainly spend more time on that cover letter. What do you guys think?
I agree. I'm going to ask a question since you refer to organization in terms of their asks. Do you have like a base cover letter template that you would just go in and say, okay, this is who I am, but just to tailor it to this organization or to this ask? Is that your recommendation in it? Or would you write a fresh cover letter for every opportunity that you have out there?
I think most people probably have one basic cover letter that they're using, and that
Good.
basic cover letter introduces their skill set, like their value proposition, maybe 3 to 5 of their biggest contributions that they have made to their industry, and offer an opportunity to expand on that conversation and an invitation to interview. I would say that most people also probably take the time to update that first paragraph and
Mhm.
connect the dot for the reader between why them and why that job. Like why
Mhm.
them, why now, and why that job.
Sure.
If it was a job that I thought I had to have, that my life would be more complete with that particular job, I would probably take the time to write a cover letter from scratch. But those jobs don't happen, they don't come around every now and then, or every day. So I would probably have one basic cover letter that I updated for most jobs.